Hello and welcome to Celtic Knitted Designs. In this video I'm going to teach you how to make these super cute little love hearts. They're hand knitted, they're filled with toy stuffing, and the idea is that as part of the response to COVID-19, nurses in the NHS have been asking for knitters to send in little hearts like these, one to go to the patient and the other to go to their family, so that even though they can't physically be together just now, there is something that is there for them. So this video will take you from start to finish of how to knit these hearts so you can join in with the COVID-19 Hearts for Patients campaign. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the idea is that there's two hearts. They don't necessarily have to be the same colour, but they could be. I have gone a little bit away from the whole traditional pink or red love hearts here. I've got a jade green, a nice lilac-y pink, and then this royal blue. Okay, so for materials to do these little hearts, you're going to need a pair of knitting needles. I'm using size 4mm Knit Pro Zing knitting needles, a pair of scissors, a stitch holder. If you don't have one, a safety pin can do the trick, or a scrap piece of yarn, and a darning needle. So today I'm using this green yarn. I've used it for a few projects now, so it's one of my stash busters. And this is Stylecraft Life Aran in sea green. And as I said, Aran weight 4mm needles. So let's get started. Okay, so first things first, we are going to cast on using the long tail method. Now you need to cast on 6 stitches. So we'll start with making our slip knot. Now, if you need any further help on doing any of these steps, check out my other videos in my YouTube channel, because I take you through step by step of all these different techniques. So we start with a slip knot, so we drape it over our 2 fingers, wrap it round, turn our hands round, take the back strand under the front, pull that loop out, and then slide our needle into the hole, and then fasten to secure. And then we cast on 5 more stitches, because this counts as our first stitch. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm going to do a tiny little knot on the end of the long tail, just so it secures it in place. There we go. And take the cast on stitches into my left hand and the empty needle into my right. And we're going to start with a purl row. So just purl these 6 stitches. So the right needle comes into the front, the working yarns to the front, we wrap it between the 2 needles, round, up, over and off. Again, through the bottom, wrap it round, up, over and off. And again, there is more information of how to do the purl stitch on my YouTube channel. If you are a pro knitter and you just want to follow the pattern, then feel free to fast forward during these slower parts. So we've purled that first row, and now we're ready for the second row. So in this one, we're going to do a new technique, and this is called knit one, make one. So this is, you knit the stitch knitwise and you make one. So basically knit into the stitch twice. So we're going to go into the bottom, and the right needle goes to the back of the left. The working yarn goes round the back of the right needle, in between the 2, and then the right needle comes to the front. Now we'd usually slide that off, but what we're going to do differently here is, because we're increasing, is to take that right needle and go back into that same stitch in the back there, and the yarn goes back round again, and knit again, and then slide off. So we did just have this 1 stitch, and we've made another one, so there's now 2 stitches there. So we're going to do that twice, so we'll do that again. So knit into the base as you normally would, yarn goes around the back, across the middle, slide. Now instead of slipping it off, we're taking the right needle and we're going back into that loop. It's going into the back there, yarn goes round and knit and then slide off. So we did originally have 2 stitches and now we've got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we are just going to knit 2 stitches. 1, 2. And then we've got 2 more stitches left on the left needle. And with these 2 stitches, we're going to increase again. So this is knitting twice into the same stitch, or knit one, make one. So into the bottom, wrap the yarn round, and then we're going back in again. So just turn it round, back in, and off. And then one more time, knit. Don't slide off, we're going back into the bottom, up the back, round, up, over, and then we're sliding it off. So we did have 6 stitches cast on, you can see here, and now we should have 10. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, so we've increased 4 stitches in that row. And now we're going to purl a row again, because this heart will be stocking stitch. But we just have lots of increasing and decreasing on our right side row, which is on knit rows. So we purl all 10, and then we go back to the knit stitch side. So here we are now going to knit 2 stitches first. And then we are going to make 2 new stitches, so knit twice into the next 2 stitches. Once, and then the second increase twice, and then we are going to knit 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to increase again. So knit 1, and then we take the right needle, go around the back, pick up the back of that loop there, round, up, over, and then we get to slide off. So that's our new stitch that's been made. And then we do that again. So knit, bring the right needle back round, kind of picks up that loop under there, over, and then off. And then the last stitch on the left needle, we're just going to knit. So now we can see we're getting a bit of a shape to the bottom, and this will be the bottom of the heart. And then we are going to purl again. So this is row 5, which is another purl row. So purl, and we now have 14 stitches on the needle. And then turn again. And we are ready to knit. And this is row 6, and we are going to increase again. So first of all, we are going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to knit 1, make 1 twice. So into that first stitch, round, knit it again. So we've increased once, and then the next stitch, we've increased twice. Then we are going to knit 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to increase twice again. So into that first one, 1, 2, and then we're going to knit these last 2 stitches. And then we purl again. So we now have 18 stitches on the needle. You can see when I'm purling that I like to use my left index finger to move the stitches up the needle. That's just one of the things that I like to do. And also it kind of holds stuff in place, which is good. And leads up to the next stitch. You're not having to take your hand off the left to slide them up. You're constantly in control of the stitches. So now we are on to row 8, and this is another increase row. So we're going to start by knitting 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to increase twice again. So we'll have this one, knit twice into there, knit twice into there, and then we are going to knit 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to increase twice again, so twice into the same stitch, and then twice into the same stitch. So we've increased by another 4 stitches in total. And the last 3 stitches we are just going to knit. We now have 22 stitches on the needle, and we're getting that nice curved shape. And this is where we're increasing here, which is drawing the stitches up, and it's giving you a neat edge because we're always finishing with a knit. So it looks pretty neat. And then we are going to once again purl all 22 stitches. So when you've got knit one and made one, it is a bit tighter to get the needle in, so you'll just notice that when you're purling. And then we're on row 10, and this time we are going to knit 5 first. Knit 5 stitches. And again we are going to increase, and it is the same method that we've used so far. Knit 1, make 1, knit 1, make 1, and then we are going to knit 9 stitches. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then again we are going to increase twice. So knit 1, make 1, and knit 1, make 1, and then we are going to knit these last 4 stitches. So we've increased another 4 stitches, so we now have 26 stitches on the needle. And then again we purl those 26 stitches because we are making stocking stitch pattern. Okay, so we've just purled those 26 stitches, and now we are going on to row 12, which is another increase row knitwise. So we're going to start off by knitting the first 6 stitches. And then we're going to increase again twice using the knit 1, make 1. So 1, twice, and then we are going to knit the next 11 stitches. And we're going to increase again. Knit 1, make 1, and again knit 1, make 1, and we are going to knit those last 5 stitches. So now we have 30 stitches on the needle, and we are now going to purl those 30. So that's those stitches purled. And then we are going on to row 14, which is our last increase row. So we're going to start by knitting the first 7 stitches. And then we are going to increase. Knit 1, make 1, knit 1, make 1, twice, and we're then going to knit along the next 13 stitches. We are going to increase twice. So knit 1, make 1, knit 1, make 1, and we're just going to knit those last 6 stitches. Okay, so that was our last increase row, and we now have 34 stitches on the needle. And now we are going to work 2 rows stocking stitch. So we're going to purl this row, purl all the way to the end. There we go, and that was row 15, purled all the way to the end. And then we're just going to knit row 16, so all the way along, just knit, no increasing, just the knit stitch. There we go. And Now we're going to do something a bit different. So this is row 17, and what we're going to do is knit the first purl the first 17 stitches. Okay, we'll just double check that's 17, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. Now what we're going to do is get our stitch holder. As I said, you could use a safety pin or a scrap of yarn if you don't have a stitch holder available. And what we're going to do is slide the remaining 17 stitches off the left needle and onto our stitch holder. And we're just going to do that by just literally picking them up purlwise and sliding them off. So there you can see I've got 4 stitches slid off, and we'll just keep going till all 17 are on the stitch holder. Now the reason we do this is because this is where we start to shape the top of the heart, and you kind of have that divide for when the heart shape kind of forms. So we're going to put those on there, secure it, and we're just going to let that dangle down and try and forget about it for the time being. And what we're going to do now is work on those 17 stitches that we just purled only. So take that right needle into your left hand, empty needle into the right, and we are just going to work these 17. So we've just purled them, so now we're going to knit them. So just let that stitch holder hang down, and just we will come to those stitches after we've got this bit sorted. Okay, so just knit the 17 and then switch round, and we are going to purl them now. Okay, so that is our divide now starting to take shape. So now what we're going to do is start to decrease. So we're going to start with a knit stitch. So knit 1, and then we're going to knit 2 stitches together. So similar to our increase, which was knit 1, make 1, we're now going to knit 2 stitches at the same time so that we decrease by 1. So we take the right needle, it goes into the second needle on the left needle, the second stitch on the left needle, and we slide it in the bottom, and then we pick up that first stitch too, and we cross it across the back like we're going to do a normal knit stitch. Take the working yarn, go around the back, in between the 2 needles, slide up, over and off. And that's us knitted 2 stitches together. So that is a decrease. So we knit 2 together, and then we knit 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do another type of decrease. This is called SSK, which is the abbreviation, and it means slip, slip, knit. So what you do is you slip the first stitch on the left needle knitwise. So your right needle goes in the bottom as if you were to knit it, but then you just slide it off, and then you do that again. So that's 1 slip in the bottom, slide off, second slip, so that's SS, and then we knit. So the left needle now goes into the bottom of those 2 slip stitches through the front of them. So it's going in the base, but front of the right needle. So the left's in front of the right. And then we take the working yarn, wrap it round the back of the right, in between the 2, and then knit it off. And that's the second decrease technique we're going to use for this pattern. So that was a slip, slip, knit. Then we're going to knit 1 stitch. And then we're going to knit 2 together again. So into the bottom of the second stitch on the left needle, pick up that first stitch 2, so we've got the 2 together, and knit them both. So we've decreased again, and then we're going to knit 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do another slip, slip, knit. So slip as if you're going to knit it, slip the next stitch as if you're going to knit it, take the left needle, go into the front bottom of those 2 slip stitches and knit them, and then off. So that's our decrease, and then we knit that last stitch. So we've just decreased 4 stitches. So we now have 13 stitches on the needle, and we are going to purl. So we just purl along You can see where you decrease because you get a bit of a bigger bump on the back, and now we are going on to do our second decrease row. So we are going to start by knitting one and then knitting two together, so into that second stitch on the left needle, round and knit them both. We are then going to knit one, and we're going to do a slip slip knit. So slip one knitwise, slip another stitch knitwise, and then we are going to take our left needle and knit into those two slip stitches, and we are then going to knit one, knit two together, and we are going to knit one again, and then slip slip knit. So slip slip knit through the front, and on that last stitch we're just going to knit it. Now we have 9 stitches left on the needle, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And what we're going to do here, seems kind of drastic, but is we're going to cut the yarn, leave a bit of a tail, and we're then going to take our darning needle and we are going to thread the tail end of the yarn through all those 9 stitches and pull it to secure. So we're just going to cut that tail and thread this through. Now this bit seems a bit drastic, but don't worry. Slide all 9 off the needle, and we're going to then feed the darning needle through those 9 stitches. Just make sure you pick them all up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the last one 9. And we're just going to pull that, and it bunches them all together at the top. So this is making the top of the love heart. And we're then going to thread the darning needle back through that first stitch and do a little knot to secure. So just feed it back through in itself, a little knot there, and then we can slide the darning needle off the tail end, and that's that half of the heart done. So we can see where we've increased at the bottom, that folds in on itself, and that's the top of one side of the heart there and the bottom. And now we're going to work on these 17 again. So we'll just move that tail end out of the way. We're going to work on these 17 stitches that are on our stitch holder. So what we need to do is get our needles again, and we are going to unfasten the stitch holder and carefully slide those 17 purl stitches back onto the knitting needle. So 1, 2, so you're just sliding the needle in and picking them off, with the purl side facing you. So this is the wrong side of the pattern because it's the inside, and it's facing you as if you were going to purl. Because if you remember where we were before, we'd only purled those first 17. So that means our first row of this side of the heart is going to be to purl these stitches. So we slide them on here purl-wise. There we go, and that's us finished with a stitch holder. So there, 17 stitches facing us ready to purl on the needle. Then pick up the working end of the yarn. I'm going to leave a wee bit of a tail, and what we're going to do is put our right needle into that first stitch as if to purl, so through the front. Then get our yarn and make a little loop. So we've got a bit of a tail and we've made a loop, and we're just going to hook that onto the end of the needle and we're going to purl that. So just sliding it off. I'll show you that again. So we've got the right needle and we're just going to go into that first stitch. We've looped the working yarn because we're picking these ones up now. I'm just going to hook it onto the right needle and then slide the left up and over, and that's purled that first one. Now I'm still holding both strands because we've got a little tail there. That was just to secure it. And I'm going to go purl the next stitch, but I'm still going to keep both these bits of yarn over. So we're purling that tail end in, and that just secures it. Now we're going to drop the tail end and just continue with the working yarn and purl the rest of the stitches. So purl to the end. And that's just a really quick and easy way of rejoining the yarn. And it's secure and you can just tuck it in at the end. And it's what I often do when, especially when I'm picking up stitches for like necklines and stuff on jumpers. So purl to the end. And then we are going to knit those 17 stitches. Now we have something to remember. So when we get to the second last stitch, almost there, here we go. You can see that there's those two bits because there's two strands there because the tail end of the yarn is in there. Now you just need to act like it's a normal stitch and you're just going to pick up both those two strands together and knit. And knit. Now you can see that's coming a bit loose. Now we can see the tail end here. We're just going to pull it a wee bit and that just tightens that up. And so it's flawlessly joined. And then we are just going to purl out those 17 stitches again before we go on to do our decrease. Okay, now we are on to our first row of the decrease for this side of the heart. So we're going to start by knitting that first stitch and we're then going to knit these two stitches together. So we go into that second loop, second stitch on the left needle, pick up the first stitch, wrap around and knit them together. We're then going to knit 3 stitches and then we're going to slip, slip, knit. Okay, slip, slip, knit 1, then knit 2 together, then going to knit the next 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to slip, slip, knit through the front loops and knit that last one. So we now have 13 stitches on the needle and then we are going to purl those 13 stitches. We are now onto our last row of decrease. So we are going to knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, then we're going to slip, slip and knit through the front loops. If you can pick them up, there we go. Then knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, slip, slip and knit through the front loops and then knit that last stitch. So now we have 9 stitches left, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Get our scissors, leave a bit of a tail, cut that there, get our darning needle and we are then going to thread the tail through the darning needle, slide the 9 stitches off the needle and pick up those 9, thread it through, there we go, and pull it through to secure. So pull it fairly tight just so that it's not going to come loose, and then we're going to thread it through that first stitch and knot it to secure, and then just do another tiny wee knot just to be on the safe side. There we go. Okay, so we now have the knitted heart, and what we now need to do is sew it together, ready to stuff with some toy stuffing. So we're going to start at the tops of the heart. You can see on the back, this is a really neat pattern because we've done the whole thing in one. We're not having to do 2 sides and sew the whole thing. So we're just going to have to sew these little bits, which are the inner bits of the top of the heart, and then down the back. So I'm going to sew to about here and then stuff it and then sew the rest. So we're going to start at the top, and this is our tail end that we threaded through. Just move that one out of the way. And I do what's called the mattress stitch. So what I do is, you've got the V here, which is the top of your knit stitch. If you get your darning needle and just kind of dig in the base of that V, so the point, you should find a little bar. There it is. And I'm just going to put the needle under that bar and thread it through. And then find the same on this side. So not the ones that are closest, because these are kind of your edge stitches, aren't that neat. You're going to go into this one, and into the base of that V there, I should find a bar. There it is. And thread the needle through. And this should join it pretty seamlessly. And it just gives a much neater finish. So we're just going to continue like that. So base of the V on this side, find the bar. And then on this side. And you can see when you start to pull it together, it looks pretty neat. And we can just continue like that on this side of the heart. But if you have a preferred method for sewing up, please feel free to use whatever you prefer. So we're coming to the end of this side of the heart. So we just want to pull it so it's fairly tight in the middle, because that's where the shaping becomes quite important. So I'm just going to secure this tail end now and start from the other top. So I'm just going to feed that back through and do a wee knot. Okay, so that's that bit sewn up. And then we are going to then take this tail end from the other top of the heart and we're going to sew this side down. So same again, look for that bar in the top of the V. There we go. And same on this side. There we go. And sew that up. Now, some people love knitting and hate the sewing up. My mum is one. So I do a lot of sewing up for her. I don't mind doing it sometimes. But this pattern's really great because there is minimal amount of sewing up. So you can just see that you don't pull the stitches too tight, just loosen them back up, and you can kind of see that because we're sewing through the bars in the stitch, it pulls the knitting stitches together, so you've got a really neat edge. And I use this stitch to knit most of my knitted garments, especially in stocking stitch, because it's just so easy and so neat and really effective. And now we're going to start sewing up this back seam of the heart. Now I'm going to do it about halfway down-ish, and then we'll start stuffing with some toy stuffing. Do one more stitch. There we go, and we're now going to secure this tail end. So just put another wee knot in there, like that. Now, the awesome thing about doing things that are stuffed is that we're going to leave this tail end that was our cast on tail end. These three that we're finished with, we're just going to tuck in there. That'll save us a bit of stuffing. Now, the beauty with this pattern is you don't need too much toy stuffing because it's just a wee heart. So we are just going to get the toy stuffing, and we'll start with one side of the top of the heart and just wedge it in there. If you struggle to get it into the top, use the top of your knitting needle and use that to just go in and shape it if you need to. And then we're going to go into the other side. I'm going to stuff that. Now, the stuffing can really shape the piece, so as you're doing it, just have a look and see how it's going. Don't be afraid to take stuff out, start again. I'm just going to put another tiny wee bit in the end, and then I'll start sewing again. Yep, not bad. Right, so now we're going to get the cast on tail end. And our darning needle again. I'm going to thread this through. Now, remember those 6 stitches that we cast on? They are here. And what we're going to do is pick up the first cast on stitch and the last, and we are just going to draw them together. Similarly to what we did at the top of here, we're kind of just drawing them together so that it's not giving a flat end to our heart, but that was the easiest way of starting the heart with some stitches on the needle rather than increasing straight away. And then we're going to sew up the rest of this back seam. So the first couple of rows we can't do our secret mattress stitch because we had so many increased stitches at the start, but we can just make sure that that looks neat. And then first secret mattress there. There we go. And into there. Yep. Now I'm just using my index finger on my left hand just to hold that stuffing in. And we can continue like that. It does get a bit trickier as you get to the end, but just see how you go. There we go. A couple more. And we are just going to sort that out. Give it a wee knot in there. A little knot to secure it. And then we're going to cut off that tail end. We're just going to leave a tiny, tiny wee bit. Like there. We are going to get the top of the darning needle and we're just going to push that knot in. So just push it in so it disappears. Okay, and there you go. There is your little heart. And it can be buddied up. So one is with the patient in hospital. Hopefully they recover. And the other is at home with the family. So even though physically you can't be together, your hearts are in the right place. To find out more information about where to send your knitted hearts, then check out the NHS website. That includes information on putting them in sealed freezer bags and dating them so that they're safe. Thank you for watching the video. I hope it was helpful. I'll put a link to the pattern below, and give us a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe. If you click on the little bell, you can get a notification for every time I post a new video. Remember, stay at home, stay safe and save lives. Happy knitting!